Good morning, everybody. I didn't really know what to audio blog about today. I've been missing a couple of days, so you may see more than one of these things today. There was a time before streaming services when you can just click on your remote, turn on your television, and watch the latest television show or look at a show that's been out of commission for nearly 50 years or so. Well, I turned 50 this year, and I'm old enough to remember when there was a time when if you wanted to catch a show, you had to be parked in front of your television set that exact time that it comes on, and you better hope that your local television station for some reason decides not to interrupt it, because it probably won't get shown again until repeat season. And it'll come on roughly at the same time. Now, this was the late 70s, and there was a fledgling, stress the word fledgling, VHS system for movies. It had not gotten to our neck of the woods yet. That didn't come until, I think, the early 80s. I'm thinking the first one I can remember was 81 or 82. We had a video store come along, and you were able to rent the VCR and the tapes. And you had to bring it back, or else you got some pretty stiff penalties, especially because back then they really had you. So it was, and VCRs were very expensive first starting out, and they were kind of bulky too. So there are a lot of places where, you were stuck with watching television on broadcast television. You only had 3 networks plus PBS, and cable didn't really start becoming a nationwide thing until the early to mid 80s. I think ours came along roughly the same time VHS tapes came along. And even then, VHS tapes only had movies. You rarely saw television shows. And if you did see a television show, you're going to be paying a lot of money because VHS tapes are bulky and they're expensive. There was one time if you wanted to get certain out-the-door hits, you had to pay $80. And I'm not joking, for one movie. The reason for this is it was kind of subsidizing the rental business. After a time, they would come down in price to $20. And that pretty much is the standard for new releases, roughly $20, $20 to $25, which I rarely ever get. For my DVD collection, I buy the old ones because you got streaming services. Now, obviously, the internet did not become a thing until the mid-90s, and even then, it wasn't strong enough until we started getting fiber optic systems and whatnot to where you can stream. And YouTube was revolutionary 15 years ago or 16 years ago now when it came along, to where you could get all these videos. Before then, it was a hodgepodge of different systems, Flash, whatever, that came along, and, you would only get like 10 minutes of a video or whatever, and sometimes it would take a while to load. I remember one time watching a game, I think it was a soccer game because I was off that day for some reason. And it took practically the entire evening to watch, I'm talking from, I think 5 to nearly 11, to watch one soccer game because I was like, this seems like interesting. It was a playoff game, I believe, in the MLS. I think it was D.C. and maybe New York or something like that. Can't remember, but anyhow, nowadays you can watch, provided your internet's good enough, you can literally stream the Super Bowl, which I did last year when we could have crowds and such. That was bizarre. Can you remember when we could have crowds at football games and sporting events? So, whereas before, you had to have, 40 years before, you had to have an antenna, and you hope you can get your local affiliate in. Like I said, it was before cable really became a thing. Cable actually has been around since the late 60s. But it was in areas where, primarily the Northeast, where they couldn't get good signal reception to begin with. And so the system was put up to where you could get a cable run out to your house, and you could get the TV signals, which is kind of ironic because nowadays cable systems tend to not go into very rural areas because it's not cost effective in their minds. And I'm going to get to that one of these days because I live out in the boondocks and the local cable system doesn't run out this far because it's not quote unquote cost effective. When most of the county can't get the cable system and you're the only franchisee because, deals, yeah, it sucks. The one thing about the revolution of satellite television was it gave every place an opportunity to watch the same TV channels. Up until that time, if you didn't have cable, which was where I'm living at right now, it didn't have cable up until it doesn't even have cable to this day. You only had the broadcast networks, and of course, the little trip to the video store to where you can watch movies on demand. Now, I remember when video stores were this place. That was like the easiest job in the world. I've never actually worked there. I tried to get on a few times, but basically you stayed behind the counter, you kept the place clean, you stocked up on the VCRs and such. And everything I heard was it was like a dream job. Almost. I mean, Quentin Tarantino got his start there in a video store. For Pete's sake, look what he's become. But alas, the video store is a dying dinosaur. We have one last one here. Just this week, I don't know if it's officially closed yet or not, the Family Video Store, the whole chain is going under. And it's all been clearanced. Now, I've not made the trip down there to go ransack the place because it's probably already ransacked to begin with. But, yeah, it's it's sad because back then you could spend time, meet your friends, and it was a thing to get friends together over a DVD and watch a DVD. And nowadays it's where you're at home and you can pull up pretty much any movie that's ever been made, or any major movie that's ever been made. And it's really one of those things that's kind of looking back at it, I think sometimes we take it for granted. I think we forget that we sometimes sacrifice quantity for quality. Because back when you only had 3 networks, even shows that were dead last in the ratings on their time period were still good shows. Unfortunately, they wouldn't make it because, hey, if you're dead last, you can't get good, strong ratings, you're not going to make it. Now, that doesn't mean there weren't bad shows, but compared to today, Yeah, we've had some stinkers out there. And broadcast television, I couldn't tell you the last time I watched a broadcast comedy. Because they're basically, kind of bland. And, why watch that when they have to abide by the standards of the FCC when you can watch an edgy comedy on a streaming service or a legendary comedy that you know almost by heart. And that's the problem with today's environment. And with the broadcast networks, and even to the extent basic cable and whatnot, they're not just competing against their modern competition, they're competing against stuff that aired 50 years ago. The streaming services are showing shows. You can get on demand anything you pretty much want. If you were a fan of the Brady Bunch, I'm not exactly sure where you would find it, but you can pretty much find it and watch it to your heart's content. And that's why, unfortunately, the networks that used to actually be groundbreaking are now basically just airing a lot of reruns because, hey, you buy the rights to a show, why not run it to death? That's why it's not exactly heartbreaking that I don't have cable anymore or satellite, because I don't really need it. There is a will and there's a way, and I can watch pretty much whatever I want to. Sometimes not legally, but yeah, I'm not going to tell you how, but I do have a way. Anyhow, but most of what I watch is either on YouTube or one of the other streaming services, and it is what it is today. I can watch it on my phone, watch it on my tablet, which is what I'm doing my podcast from here, or watch it on my TV set. Crazy thing is, now I can get any radio station practically by just saying to either one of my the Alexa or the Hey Google, such and such station, and boom, we're off to the races. Whereas before...
Sorry, I don't know how to help with that. Here are other things you can try.
Alexa, stop. Sorry. She can be very perceptive. Anyhow, what was I going to say? Like I said, you can get any radio station you want to. You can listen to any, for a price, always a price. You can listen to any ball game. You can listen to any anything practically. I think TuneIn is like what is it, $7.99 a month. You can listen to any ball game you want to. There's obviously still Sirius XM radio, which is satellite radio, but I'm not sure how many people actually utilize it outside of their cars nowadays. So, yeah. I mean, you can stream it on an app and such, and, a while back I had a deal where I could get like 6 months for a really cheap price, and it was kind of nice to reflect back to when I worked 2 jobs. One was in security on third shift, and which is a very boring job. That was what got me through it, which is satellite radio. I think, it was actually an actual radio that I had. And this was before you could, before it was cheaper to just stream stuff on your phone. Which is kind of crazy, but how it goes. So looking back at it, it is remarkable where we've come from. I remember that it was kind of frustrating being a sports fan when you had to wait all week to get to the sports on the weekend, except, of course, during college basketball season when you would get a game. And now, at the same time I was growing up, ESPN was a thing. We didn't get cable until January of '86, and that changed everything. And now, with the way things are, you can pretty much watch any game out there. You know, even high school games are being streamed online. If you'd told me when I first entered high school, God, 36 years ago, this fall, that you could stream the local football game, or even a football game from somewhere way out in Iowa or Texas or Pennsylvania or whatnot, I'd have been like, are you out of your mind? Yeah, we do live in interesting times. And I wonder sometimes if we're paying for that. You know, we forget, instead of, going to the local football game, we sit at home and watch whatever's on TV. I remember back when I was a kid that the local football games would be packed even when the team stunk. They'd be packed because they were the place to go. They were the place to socialize. Now, not so much. Obviously now because of COVID, but before this plague came along, even then there were issues. It's a sad state of affairs when you think about it. But that is life. Life is one of those things that it sucks. It is what it is. It be what it be. Well, that's it for now. I just wanted to come on here and kind of do my little audio vlog thing. And I may do another one after a while. I just hadn't figured it out yet. I kind of came up here today and was going to write something, and I kind of blanked. And I was like, well, if I can't write anything, I'll just do an audio blog and kind of come up with an idea and just do it. Well, that's it for now. Y'all take it easy. Good night, good luck, and may the good news be yours.